Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind. Vivek is the man that keeps on giving. He did one interview with NBC News, one sit-down interview, and it was so glorious that I'm making two separate videos on the same topic. The previous one I recorded was on the whole white supremacy thing. You know, they're trying really hard to paint Vivek Ramaswamy as this horrible man who dismisses white supremacy. Yeah. We get the leftist perspective that Vivek Ramaswamy is the brown face of white supremacy, just like Larry Elder was the black face of white supremacy. Sure. But now this video, we're just going to go into general media practices, well, dishonest media practices. This NBC journalist was absolutely horrible, one of the worst I've ever seen. And this moment, well, it just bothered me, and so I want to talk about it. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. All right, folks, so just take a look at this clip.
Let me ask you, in recent weeks, you've put a lot of ideas out there. You've suggested on the campaign trail that January 6th was an inside job, that the plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer was a job of inside entrapment, that the House Republicans, let me finish, that the House Republicans impeachment inquiry is part of a Democratic plot to sideline Biden, that there is a devious Democratic scheme to actually nominate Nikki Haley. The reality is none of these are top issues for Iowa voters. So why are you focused on these conspiracy theories?
Well, focused is a heavy-handed word, Dasha. If you take 80% of what I said, I'm talking about policy and future direction of the country, talking about how we'll increase the supply of energy to bring down the cost for everyday Americans. And so that's 80% of what I'm talking about, but I'm not going to hide from what I do believe are realities hiding in plain sight that people deserve to know about, which the last item that you described. It's not a secret that Larry Fink is going to fundraisers of Nikki Haley, propping her up. That actually one of the biggest funders of the lawsuits against Trump, including efforts to keep him off the ballot, is Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn. That's a $250,000 donor to super PAC supporting Nikki Haley. And so I reject this mainstream media general narrative of dismissing something as a conspiracy theory, when in fact I'm a big fan of going after facts hiding in plain sight.
But you know that when you say these things, you know when you bring up the Gretchen Whitmer thing, you know when you bring up January 6th,
grounded in fact.
January 6th being an inside job. Yes, 80% of what you talk about might be policy, but when you hit those issues, that's going to take over the news cycle. You know how it works.
I don't think it should. I'm speaking the truth,
but
as it does
you're a smart
evenly
guy.
across
You know
the
how
board.
it works. Are you using that to get attention as you've been slumping in the polls?
To the contrary, I'm actually speaking. You have a lot of political analysts that look at this and say exactly what you're saying. Why aren't you just saying what causes you to poll better? It's what every other political candidate's doing. They're taking what their consultants serve them up. Here's what the voters say are the top issues. Spout back to them what the voters want to hear. The eve of the last election, I think it's shameful that the Hunter Biden laptop story was systematically suppressed so voters didn't have that information.
You're talking about Gretchen Whitmer being an inside job of entrapment.
I'm talking about a government that has lied to its people. The same FBI that's investigating conservatives, the same FBI and the same law enforcement apparatus, Jack Smith, that has subpoenaed millions of Americans for anybody who liked or retweeted a Donald Trump post in 2020. That's Orwellian, but that's the same federal law enforcement apparatus that put people up to an alleged kidnapping plot that they otherwise wouldn't have been put up to. Multiple defendants acquitted on grounds of entrapment. And so is this a top issue that voters bring up on the mind of voters? Absolutely it's not. But the mainstream media is pushing, and the establishment in both parties is pushing one established narrative.
So if it's not a priority for voters, why are you so focused on it?
Because truth is a priority for me. We need to speak the hard truths that other candidates are unwilling to touch. And even though that doesn't poll necessarily on what NBC or the Des Moines Register or another media outlet is going to ask voters what are the top issues on their mind, it's important. What really is important to many voters, I believe, is a government that trusts them with the hard truth again. That hasn't happened for a very long time. And so my view is if that's what the voters want, that's what they're going to get from me. If they want somebody who's going to incrementally reform things, change tax rates by 1% one direction or another, and call that a legislative accomplishment, go with somebody else. That's not me.
Anybody who has a different view or comes to a different conclusion on a topic which the media has established all the facts in play is a conspiracy theorist. The frickin' gaslighting campaign continues. I don't know about you guys, but as the viewer, I feel insulted when I see journalists act in this way. Now, of course, this particular individual is completely unhinged. I mean, she's like vying for Caitlin Collins' job or something. I mean, I think Caitlin Collins is setting up a new meta here, building on the Jim Acosta meta, and all the rest of these mainstream media hack journalists are simply trying to follow suit so they can get the lovely promotion just like Caitlin Collins and Jim Acosta did. But back to the point that I was trying to get to, I feel insulted by these kinds of interactions. Because essentially what she's saying is that we're stupid and can't think, and that we're just falling for conspiracy theories. And even beyond that we're talking about inappropriate things that don't matter to the voters and that we shouldn't talk about. Well, then what exactly should we talk about there? Only media-approved narratives? Is that the implication? That we're only allowed to talk about topics that are approved by you, Mrs. NBC News lady? Voters don't care about it. Why are you focused on it? Well, maybe because it's important, and maybe voters actually do care about it. Maybe voters would care about it more if more people spoke about these topics. Maybe if we had more candidates who were interested in actually telling the truth and tackling hard, supposedly controversial issues like mainstream media bias, fake news, bogus narratives, government psyops. Maybe, just maybe, we'd have more trust in the system. Maybe we could get to the root cause and the bottom of some of these conspiracy theories. You know, the implication is that everything that Vivek Ramaswamy is saying is fake. He's lying. Is he really? Ooh, January 6th was an inside job. Real freaking crazy stuff, right? I'm sure Nancy Pelosi had a documentary film crew there, totally by accident, totally by coincidence. I'm sure those messages between Nancy Pelosi's office and the sergeant at arms must have just been a figment of my imagination. I don't know, maybe all the video footage showing police officers escorting people through the building and opening doors and unlocking the magnetic entrance doors. I'm sure all those clips are just a figment of my imagination too. Oh, and also Stephen Sun, the former Capitol Police Chief, and his testimony, well, he must be just a Russian bot.
I will come there in person. I want to be there. I want to testify. So I'm glad you think I'm reserved. I'm, to be honest with you, I'm a little pissed off because it doesn't have to happen. If people were reporting the intelligence correctly, if I was allowed to do my job as the chief, I got a significant experience. If I was allowed to do my job as the chief, we wouldn't be here today. This didn't happen. Then see how you're out there, you're lambasted in public, and it's all, everything appears to be a cover-up. Like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when you look at the information, the intelligence that it had, military had, it's all watered down. I'm not getting intelligence. I'm denied support National Guard in advance. I'm denied National Guard while we're under attack for 71 minutes. You're in a fight?
Yeah.
A fight for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, 1 minute.
You out.
1 minute.
I was going to say, 60 seconds, 3 minutes.
Yeah,
Let me tell you, it wears you out. My officers were fighting for 80 minutes before the protesters ever broke the first one with that. I have to go to the Capitol Police Board and get approval from congressional leadership in advance, like I did on January 3rd. I'm denied twice because of optics and because the intelligence didn't support it. So think about that.
Let me ask you the question, who made that decision? Who denied you?
I was denied by Paul Irving, House Sergeant Arms, and also Mike Stenger, Senate Sergeant Arms.
And who do they
on
work,
January 3rd.
Who do they work for?
It would have been working for Pelosi on the House side. That Pelosi was the number one boss, and then McConnell on the Senate side.
Maybe, just maybe. Maybe it matters because the truth matters. But NBC lady simply can't get it. She doesn't understand. Iowan voters, when polled, told us they only care about border security, the economy, and healthcare. People aren't one-issue voters, lady. They're not two-issue voters. They're not three-issue voters. People care about the whole picture, and they care about having honest politicians who are willing to say the hard truths. And that's exactly who Vivek is. And the stories that he's tackling, with a very open mind, are important to a lot of people. And literally everything that she listed off as being a conspiracy theory that voters are not interested in, Vivek then went through and listed all of the facts and essentially proved to her that the truths that he's speaking about these issues are not him peddling in conspiracy theories, but rather facts, and he came with all the receipts. Nikki Haley is propped up by the Democrat establishment. Absolutely. We covered this yesterday. One of her biggest funders is Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn, who happens to be the same guy funding a lot of the lawsuits attempting to take Donald Trump down, the E. Jean Carroll lawsuits, the ballot lawsuits. He's funding most of it. Not exactly a conspiracy theory, now is it? Complete nonsense. Essentially what she's saying is the Democrats are allowed to peddle actual conspiracy theories relating to Gretchen Whitmer, January 6th, Russia, the list goes on and on. The media will run with all of those conspiracy theories, each one, of course, eventually getting debunked. They're allowed to promote as many conspiracy theories as they want, as long as it accomplishes their goal. But if Vivek attempts to debunk their conspiracy theories, well, now he's a real dangerous conspiratorial man that is scaring voters. She keeps going back to the Gretchen Whitmer kidnap plot, as if that's her trump card. But we could literally go to the most left-wing source, the Washington Post, and find this article in 2 seconds. Jury acquits 2 in Michigan governor kidnap plot, deadlocks on 2 others. Control F to find the word entrapment. A mistrial was declared for Fox and Croft, and federal authorities said they plan to go to trial a second time in hopes of convicting them, the case marks one of the rare instances in which an entrapment defense was partially successful in a terrorism case. So the jury acquitted 2 individuals on grounds of entrapment. How is this a conspiracy theory? The man is literally speaking fact. But of course, we have these mainstream media journalists who live in this New York City little bubble, this left-wing propaganda, DNC fake news machine. These people seem oblivious to the facts. They seem oblivious to everything going on. They think of everything within the limitations of approved leftist media narratives. And I guess this is the face of shock when that very curated leftist worldview is challenged. Oh, how dare you tackle a controversial issue? I don't know. I don't think Vivek's a conspiracy theorist. I don't think Vivek is scaring voters with the things that he's saying. I think Vivek is getting awful close to the truth and it bothers them. But most importantly, they simply can't stand an actual human being politician. You know, Trump was the first one. Vivek's another. The idea that we're seeing grassroots figures blast onto the scene like Vivek Ramaswamy and Donald Trump, willing to say hard truths, is horrifying for them because what they want are the Nikki Haley's of the world, the people who say what their donors tell them to say, who regurgitate prepackaged talking points, specifically aimed at what the polls and what the focus groups tell them they should say. Not authentic talking points, but talking points that were tested on people, you know, like a psychological brainwash experiment. We told the voters that we're going to give them free shit. Oh, it worked real good. All right, well, let's run with that message. Maybe you have control over the conversation right now, and these issues aren't at the top of the priority list for a lot of voters because they're living in your carefully crafted fake news alternate reality. The more people are exposed to the truth, the more important these issues will continue to become. And again, this is the face of shock at the idea of losing control of the narrative. Anyways, the clip speaks for itself. That's my little added commentary. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.